Story number one: Andy Dalton and the Carolina Panthers go to Las Vegas and get revived in a massive way. I mean, it took Andy Dalton literally one game to resuscitate an entire franchise. Dalton goes 26 of 37 for 319 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Panthers score 36 points and win easily. Now, Evan, we talked last week. We thought that Andy Dalton would be a big spark to this offense. In no way, shape, or form did I think Andy Dalton would put like league best quarterback play out there and the Panthers would score 36 points on the road. Evan, what did you see out of Andy Dalton's first start of the season for the Panthers?
Yeah, just a dramatic turnaround. I mean, Andy Dalton knows how to play quarterback in the NFL. He knows how to get the ball to open receivers like Deontay Johnson. The Panthers also protected him really well in this game. The Raiders are supposed to have a decent pass rush. Max Crosby. Andy Dalton was only pressured on 15% of his dropbacks. Chuba Hubbard is running the crap out of the ball. I mean, he's playing really, really good. He has one of the highest success rates among rushers in the NFL through 3 weeks. Everything came together with a professional quarterback under center, and it does not speak well to Bryce Young at all.
Yeah, and Dave Canales, of course, comes out and says that we're not trading Bryce Young, but also we're going forward. Andy Dalton is our franchise quarterback for now. The Deontay Johnson stuff is super interesting from a fantasy perspective. Deontay Johnson led all NFL wide receivers in week 3 in expected fantasy points, and he converted them. You know, he scored roughly at about his expectation. I mean, it's a huge lift to him. In this game, Adam Thielen sustained a really bad hamstring injury. It looked like he got shot. I mean, it was really bad. He went down. He's been placed on IR. It's an interesting spot for Xavier Legette, who, if you listen to the waiver wire show, I talked about with Daigle for a while. I think Legette is going to be the one-for-one replacement, at least in terms of role, for Adam Thielen. But yeah, Evan, any thoughts on Deontay Johnson, Xavier Legette stuff going forward?
You know, I had high expectations for Deontay Johnson entering this season. Obviously, he was not going to fulfill those with Bryce Young under center. I think he can get there and more. At one point, I had him as a top 50 overall player. I think he can get there and more with Andy Dalton under center, and obviously they're going to stick with him as long as he remains successful. Xavier Legette, yeah, the Panthers traded up to draft him with, I believe, the last pick in the first round.
Yeah.
He had one big season in college, was like a late bloomer. He was a very polarizing prospect, I would say. A lot of people didn't believe in him at all. Kind of a manufactured touch player. So we'll see on him. But I mean, there's definitely there's definitely light at the end of the tunnel now for this passing game moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. You know, Deontay Johnson, 8-1-22-1 on a 38% target share. Next few games for the Panthers versus the Bengals, at the Bears, versus the Falcons next few games. But yeah, and also for anyone that's out there stashing Jonathan Brooks, I mean, this Andy Dalton stuff is a huge boost to you.
Absolutely.
I mean, huge.
And so is the success of the offensive line. I mean,
yeah,
the offensive line had big question marks entering the season, especially on the edges. They used all that money on the 2 guards, but the offensive line is playing well so far. It was even playing pretty well with Bryce Young under center, but it took another step in week 3.
All right. Story number 2 comes out of Tampa Bay, where Bucky Irving is starting to make his move. Even in a game that the Bucs got trucked in, right? I mean, they were down 17-0 early in that game. Even in that setup, Bucky outcarried Rachaad White 9-6. Bucky saw 3 targets to Rachaad White 6. I don't want to go too far here. Rachaad White played 42 snaps. Bucky played 18 in this game. But again, they were trailing the entire game. Rachaad White's calling card is in the pass game. On the season, we're looking at, I mean, just raw yards per carry, which is not the greatest stat, but raw yards per carry is so drastic here. Bucky's 6.2 on the season. Rachaad White, 2.1. Todd Bowles comes out after the game and says Bucky's earned more snaps going forward. So Rachaad White owners are in a panic right now. Evan, what do you think about that spot and any other thoughts from the Tampa game where they surprisingly really weren't that competitive against the Broncos at home?
I mean, I just kind of always thought that this was potentially inevitable. It's the reason that I had a huge fade on Rachaad White. He was on the shy away list. He was one of the least efficient runners in the NFL last season. And he opens this season as maybe the least efficient runner outside of like Javonte Williams. So the production is not there. Todd Bowles, obviously a defensive-minded head coach. He's going to want to run the ball successfully, and Bucky Irving gives the Bucks their best chance to do that. I think that his role should continue to grow going forward. You can use Rashad White as like a change of pace and third down back, but Bucky Irving is the best runner on the roster.
Yeah, I mean, anyone in a reasonable size fantasy league, Bucky Irving should be owned. I mean, he should have been owned for most of this time. Anyways, regardless, Evan, this was a really bad performance by the Bucks. I mean, they laid a complete egg here. As expected, the softer matchup, Surtain was on Evans. The softer matchup went to Chris Godwin, and he produced. That was good. Other than that, it was really bad. Any thoughts on what happened to the Bucks here as they lay an egg at home to the Broncos?
Yeah, because the Broncos could put Surtain on Mike Evans, and the Bucks, outside of 9 runs from Bucky Irving, couldn't really run the ball. I mean, they struggled to move the ball in this game. Chris Godwin had another good fantasy performance, but only went 6 for 53 and a touchdown. They didn't generate offense. Baker Mayfield averaged under 5 yards per pass attempt. The Broncos actually wound up being a difficult matchup for the Bucks on paper, and that translated to the game.
All right. Story number 3 from week 3 comes out of Baltimore. This Mark Andrews situation just won't go away. Evan, I thought that situation was stabilized in week 2 when Mark Andrews ran a route on 73% of the dropbacks, saw a 15% target share. That was solid. But on Sunday, Andrews ran 6 routes. Now, Lamar only dropped back 17 times, so I don't want to freak out here, but only 6 routes on 17 dropbacks for Mark Andrews. Only saw 6% of the targets. After the game, Harbaugh says Andrews is playing fewer snaps as a result of the team having big personnel groups out there on the field on Sunday, which I guess makes sense, except Isaiah Likely played 39 snaps. He's part of the big personnel package now. Isaiah Likely was 39 snaps to 22 for Andrews. So a lot of people want to know, Evan, should I drop Mark Andrews? I have some thoughts on that, but I'm curious your take on what happened here with him and any other Ravens thoughts.
It's been really, really frustrating. You would think in a big personnel package, you'd want to use multiple tight ends, right? Well, they're using Charlie Kolar. They're using 3 tight ends now.
Mm-hmm.
So, and clearly that was a game where, based on the game plan, the Cowboys have been terrible against the run. The Ravens wanted to exploit that with their big personnel packages. You would think that Mark Andrews would be a part of that, though. So, very discouraging. I certainly wouldn't want to play Mark Andrews in a fantasy league at this point. I'd probably give him one more week, and then we hit the buys, and we got roster crunches to deal with.
Yeah.
Then we're talking about potentially dropping Mark Andrews.
I mean, my take is he is too talented at such a bad position to drop Mark Andrews. There will be games where Lamar Jackson and the game plan will not be 17 dropbacks. I mean, 17 dropbacks is just a freakishly low number. In games where they throw more, like that Chiefs game in week 1, for instance, that was a whole other story with the way they played Mark Andrews on defense. But in standard outcomes where they're not focused on Mark Andrews, where they drop back 30 times, I think he's going to be okay. Not great, but okay. So I'm still holding on Mark Andrews. The other thing that I saw in this game, like what Evan said, I mean, major rushing heavy game plan. We talked about on Sunday morning, the Derrick Henry stuff, just an absolute smash. And in games where they're leading like this, Derrick Henry is going to have huge, huge games. Wasn't really much else to say or see beyond that, though. Evan, any thoughts on the big dog or anything else on Ravens going forward?
The big dog looks really good. He looks like prime big dog. He's got a ton of touchdowns already. For people that were predicting that he might lead the NFL in rushing touchdowns, he's almost right on that pace. I think he's got 4 through 3 games. And that's always what was going to carry him in a setup like this. And you have to like the fact that they are allowing their opponent to an extent to determine their game plans. They're running defense-specific game plans. That's really going to help Derrick Henry and help us identify when to invest in Derrick Henry and DFS and stuff, because they are clearly gearing their game plans to attack opponent weaknesses.
Yeah, agreed. They do play the Bills this week, which may not be the best spot for Derrick Henry, but think about the fantasy playoffs. So week 15, Derrick Henry plays the Giants. Week 16, Derrick Henry plays the Steelers. Week 17, Derrick Henry plays the Texans. Certainly a chance for the Ravens to get leads in all those games, which would be good for Derrick Henry. Story 4 from this week comes out of the New York Jets. First of all, just a really crisp clean performance from the Jets on Thursday Night Football against the Patriots. Thought Aaron Rodgers looked like pretty vintage Aaron Rodgers. He had the back shoulder throw to Big Mike Williams, had a tight window kind of pylon throw to Garrett Wilson for a touchdown, seam throws to Tyler Conklin on like secondary reads. Like I thought Aaron Rodgers looked really good. The story coming out of the game, though, was Braylon Allen once again. Snaps in this game, Breece Hall 52, Braylon Allen 23. Routes were heavily in favor of Breece 26-8, but opportunities, Breece 21, Braylon 14. I know there's some people freaking out about this. My point is that two things. Braylon has earned this, right? He has earned it by playing well, period. And second, the more running back touches there are to go around, the deeper the split will be. If there were only 15 running back touches in this game, I think Breece gets maybe 12 or 13 of them. But because there were so many running back touches available, 35 of them, it was 21-14 in favor of Breece. So I think it's good for both of them. I'm not freaking out as a Breece owner, and like I'm not going nuts on Braylon either, even though he should certainly be owned in all leagues. Evan, what are your thoughts on Jets backfield right now?
I don't think a whole lot has changed other than Braylon Allen showing that he's like a starting caliber player in the NFL. If you drafted him, which, he was one of our favorite late round pick, you especially, you were real early on him, one of our favorite late round running back stashes. He might have some viability during the bye weeks as a flex option. And certainly if something were to happen to Breece Hall,
Yeah.
Braylon Allen could absolutely smash. Braylon Allen was a guy who was a little bit polarizing coming out of school because he was a converted linebacker, and some people thought that he lacked like natural running instincts. Clearly, this guy is 235 pounds. He's got great feet for a big back. He can run downhill. He can play a little bit in the passing game. He's been a steal in the real life draft and in fantasy drafts so far. So you got something real nice if he's on your bench right now. Aaron Rodgers was he was feeling it in this game. And afterwards, in his post-game press conference, he just had a big smile on his face. He was like, man, I was doing stuff out there that I used to do when I was a much younger man.
Yeah.
So I think that he's obviously advanced. He's well past the Achilles injury, playing really good football.
I'm curious what you think, Evan, about Garrett Wilson. People are frustrated right now. I know he scored the touchdown. He looked frustrated himself out there. He has just been like the center of defensive attention all 3 weeks. And he had Christian Gonzalez on him for a lot of that game on Thursday. Still found production. But yeah, what do you think about Garrett Wilson's outlook right now? He was a first-round pick in most leagues.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is not necessarily a situation that is conducive for Garrett Wilson to like compete for the league lead in receiving, or anything like that. I think he's going to be, a guy that you want to start every week in season long. But I don't necessarily know that he's going to have blow-up games when they're going to run the ball a lot. They're going to play really good defense. Their defense was lights out against New England. Aaron Rodgers is going to throw the ball to Allen Lazard. So I think that Garrett Wilson may end up disappointing just because the offensive environment is not conducive to Garrett Wilson going out there and having 150-yard, 2-touchdown games.
Yeah, and I thought that there was concern that when you play such good defense and you play so slow that there's just no shootouts available, right? There's like no shootouts available to Garrett Wilson. That's why I actually thought about taking Puka ahead of Garrett Wilson a bunch in drafts. Of course, the Puka thing got shoved down my throat, so is what it is on Puka. Okay. Fifth biggest story of the week last night, Island game, Monday Night Football, everyone watching. Jaden Daniels looks absolutely incredible. And, the reaction from everyone from these Island games where everyone's watching is always hyperbole and exaggeration. The afterwards, everybody's saying, Jaden Daniels is the best quarterback in the league. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. The Bears should have taken Jaden Daniels over Caleb Williams. Cliff Kingsbury is a genius. Look at all those deep bombs that he called, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, I think the truth is going to settle somewhere in between, but you cannot deny that Jaden Daniels turned in one of the best quarterback performances of the season last night. Evan, how sticky do you think that is? Any more reactions to last night?
I mean, I tried telling you about Cliff Kingsbury. Tried telling everybody. There's a clip out there somewhere on Twitter talking about how great Cliff Kingsbury is, how he deserves another head coaching job. I'm kidding. How the conversation right now around where I live is not healthy.
Yeah.
Right now with Justin Fields 3-0 in Pittsburgh, Jaden Daniels lighting it up in a primetime game. We should note, though, that the Bengals have big problems on defense. Big problems on defense, and we'll be exploiting that going forward. But Jaden Daniels looked like a superstar.
Yeah.
That was an incredible performance. Brought back to life Terry McLaurin. Man, if you're a Commanders fan, you got to be feeling really, really good right now about that. By the way, I believe that in the Circa Survivor, the Bengals were the number one most picked team
Yeah.
this week. I mean,
Eh,
there's a huge. It's been a wild first 3 weeks in terms of underdogs,
Yep.
and I bet like 70% of the field is already wiped out in that.
Oh, buddy. 96% of the field has been eliminated.
Oh my God!
Yeah, I had
Wow.
Raiders. I'm out. A lot of people had Bucks. They're out. A ton of people had Bengals. They're out. So yeah, me and everybody else is out. Also, 4% of the field is remaining in the
Wow.
big Circa Survivor. Crazy. Yeah, just a little bit more on the Jaden Daniels stuff. The difference to me in this game was they actually went vertical. It was not the horizontal raid. They ran plenty of that horizontal nonsense where they get the ball out quick behind the line of scrimmage to whoever. But they were also testing deep, and that is what Jaden Daniels does well. And when you have a quarterback that can run like Jaden Daniels can, and honestly, I didn't know what to think coming into the season about him as a runner. I didn't know if he'd be Lamar Jackson or Daniel Jones or Dak Prescott. Or I don't even know. But he's been closer to Lamar as a runner than I thought he would be, especially around the goal line where they keep running these RPOs at the goal line from inside the 5-yard line. He continues to score on them. He's an incredible runner. So when you have the vertical ball and you're an incredible runner, you just have massive fantasy floor ceiling combo, just absolutely massive. And so, yeah, I mean, Jaden Daniels, I think I don't want to like overreact to last night, but I think I'm ready to say that in fantasy, just an absolute smash to have Jaden
Absolutely.
Daniels. Um,
I thought that Luke McCaffrey showed some. I didn't look at the snap
yeah,
and participation stuff yet, but I thought that Luke McCaffrey showed some things in this game. Don't drop, Terry McLaurin clearly. If they are going to continue to go vertically, throw the ball vertically, like that's where the ball is going to go.
yeah.
So
Last thing on Commanders, Austin Eckler sustained the concussion in this game. Brian Robinson continues to run reasonably well, but they did use Jeremy McNichols right away after Eckler went out in some clear passing down situations. All right. Let's go to the NFC now. We're going to go alphabetical order here. We'll start with the Arizona Cardinals. So I actually watched this Arizona game very closely because I played Kyler Murray in cash on both sites this week. Kyler started off real hot. I mean, very first drive out of the gate, 70-yard touchdown, throws a touchdown to Marvin Harrison Jr. I thought the shootout was absolutely on. For the rest of the game, it was just a struggle for Kyler in this offense. They only managed 17 first downs. They only get 53 plays off. McBride had a couple of really tough drops before leaving late with a concussion. Elijah Higgins is the next man up there. So, yeah, it was I don't want to say concerning, but it was frustrating because it seemed like a really good spot where they could get into a wild shootout. I guess Lions defense just played too well. Evan, what do you think of Cardinals' performance against the Lions?
yeah, I had the over in this game. I thought we were going to cruise right to it, and then just everything kind of, the air went out of the balloon. The Cardinals did not run the ball like they could and like they did in the first two games, and the Lions defense. The Lions put a lot of resources into trying to improve their defense in the offseason. We didn't necessarily see that in the first two games. I thought that showed up here. But yeah, I mean, a disappointing game from a scoring standpoint, obviously. I think it had the highest total on the week or one of them,
Yep.
and it didn't even come close.
Yeah, easily the highest total in the week, like 51 and a half. Yeah, the McBride stuff, he still has, despite leaving this game a little bit early, still has the best opportunity of any tight end in the league. Like, in other words, where he's being targeted, how many times being targeted, he has the best opportunity out of any tight end through 3 weeks. I doubt he'll be cleared for this week's game coming up, but we'll see again. Backup is Elijah Higgins, an athletic guy if you are desperate there. Atlanta. This was the Sunday night game. They had plenty of chances to win against the Chiefs. Really bad no call on the Kyle Pitts chance deep in the fourth quarter may have cost the Falcons the game. just because they were in it and they played pretty well, something still seems like slightly off to me about their pass game, but it's certainly getting better. A lot of the designed plays, especially in the first half, were to Darnell Mooney, which was frustrating as someone who has decent amount of Drake London, and I am still curious on the Kyle Pitts stuff. But yeah, the good news, Evan, is that Kirk Cousins dropped back 90 times this season. We know exactly who's going to be out there. On 90 dropbacks, Darnell Mooney, 89 routes, Drake London, 88, Ray-Ray McCloud, 81, Kyle Pitts, 76. I mean, those guys are going to be out there for the overwhelming majority of routes. Evan, what did you think of Falcons from Sunday night against the Chiefs?
Well, they lost 2 offensive linemen during the game, which is going to be something to monitor going forward. Caleb McGarry sprained his MCL. They're saying that he's day to day, but that is usually a week-to-week injury. And then Drew Dahlman, their starting center, suffered a high ankle sprain. Bijan Robinson was not efficient in this game. The Chiefs are really good on defense. And again, the Falcons lost 2 offensive linemen during the game. But his usage is elite. Tyler Algier has played a little bit, and he's been effective in his chances. But this is Bijan's backfield, much more so than it was last season when they used 2 and 3 guys under Arthur Smith. Kyle Pitts got tackled at the 1-yard line at the end of a 50-yard bomb. Yeah. If you watch that play, though, he was like the 4th read. He finished with 2 catches on 5 targets. I don't think it was like a promising takeaway game for Kyle Pitts or anything. But at least you got the 50-yard gain.
Yeah. I mean, at the tight end position, it's so bad right now. I mean, Pitts has been terrible.
Yeah.
He's still like the tight end 8 overall.
Yeah, I was going to say,
even though he's been terrible.
He's probably top 10.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. So, but yeah, I agree with Evan that like it's hard to expect sustained production out of Kyle Pitts right now, given the way the offense is playing and all the scheme stuff. It's not even going to Drake London as much. A lot of the scheme stuff is just like Mooney and Ray and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't feel great about it overall. If people want to give me something for London or Pitts that I think is strong, I'd at least consider it.
And they're clearly like a balanced offense.
Yes.
This is not any kind of super pass heavy offense. I don't think that that's going to change. Bijan Robinson is the centerpiece of the team.
All right, let's go to Chicago. So Bears go to Indy, score 0, stone cold 0 points in the first half. In the second half, they get into this wild comeback mode. Caleb Williams ends up dropping back 56 times. They lose 21-16. I mean, I don't know what you think, Evan. It's hard for me to parse between they can't protect him, the offensive line is absolutely awful, and also he's making too many mistakes, right? 2 interceptions, 4 sacks, 1 fumble lost here. What do you think about what's going on with Caleb and this Bears offense right now?
Well, there are a lot of things going wrong. I think that they're poorly coached. I think that that's shown up in every game so far. I actually think that Caleb has gotten a little bit better in each game. And that's not to say I'm not pretending like he played really well here or anything. His numbers actually in the end look decent. But again, when you drop back to pass 56 times, you're going to end up with numbers.
Yeah.
Keenan Allen has been out. Rome Odunze has been banged up. The offensive line has been bad. They can't run the ball at all. Okay. DeAndre Swift has been a disaster. You remember the Bears went out and didn't they make him like the first signing of free agency or something like that? He has been a total disaster, and he is a misfit for the offense at this point. Trying to run him between the tackles is pointless.
He is the least efficient running back in the entire league right now. Absolutely awful. And they made that signing when they already had Khalil Herbert and Roschon Johnson. It's just crazy.
Who have run the ball pretty well, certainly better than DeAndre Swift.
Yeah.
And I don't know where the light is at the end of that tunnel either, because the offensive line doesn't seem like it's going to be making any advancements. They did go really strong on Cole Kmet, and we didn't see much of Gerald Everett. And Cole Kmet wound up with 10 catches. Now, again, 56 dropbacks in the game. Those numbers are going to be inflated. But, I think that Cole Kmet is back into the range where you can use him in fantasy.
Oh, I mean, at the tight end position, Kmet certainly is. And I know you say like, oh, well, what's the upside in keeping Swift or Kmet or Caleb? Upcoming schedule for the Bears is outrageous. Home against the Rams, home against the Panthers, home against the Jaguars, at Commanders, at Cardinals, next 5 games. You will not find a better schedule out there right now than what the Bears have coming up. I think a lot of these guys are buys right now just going into that schedule. The best thing I saw, obviously, from this Bears game was Rome Odunze. This was his second game without Keenan Allen, 89 of 90 snaps for Rome Odunze, 54 wide, 35 slot, 21% target share, 6-1, 12-1 result. I mean, Rome looks very legit. And I think that's kind of what we all expected. The historicals on wide receivers who go in the top 10 of drafts is so strong. The Keenan Allen stuff is weird. I mean, he's had this heel stuff for a while, and now he's got a personal issue as well. So I feel really good about having Rome Odunze on my team right now, especially coming into this upcoming schedule. Let's go to Dallas. So 1 week after getting boat raced right out of the gate by the Saints at home, Cowboys don't show up again in week 3, this time for a home game against the Ravens. They're down 14-3 in the first quarter, 21-3 at halftime, 28-3 at the end of 3 quarters. This Cowboys defense, which I formerly had respect for, is just an absolute sieve right now. Evan, what do you think about Dallas's latest meltdown, this time home to the Ravens?
Well, I mean, they had that furious comeback, which did not feature CD Lamb. CD Lamb was super disappointing. The Ravens were super physical with him, wouldn't let him get any separation. It felt like in the second half of the game, Dak just stopped looking at CD Lamb because the Ravens just wouldn't let him do anything.
Yeah.
And then he started going to guys like Jalen Tolbert. Jake Ferguson had a bunch of catches. The backfield is like, we're getting no production out of the backfield. Rico Dowdle has been better than Ezekiel Elliott, but
Yeah.
they haven't really sustained any kind of a running game so far. So I don't know. They've been like, I don't know what to think about the Cowboys through 3 weeks. I'd say that.
Well, a couple of things. First, they did go to more Rico than Zeke in this game. So I think they're starting to see that Zeke just like can't play. The second thing I'd say is if the defense is going to be this bad, and I don't know what you think, Evan, but if the defense is actually going to be this bad, that could be good for Dak. I mean, he could get into a ton of crazy shootouts despite relative lack of weaponry. He can certainly move the ball as we saw in the second half there. So if the defense is going to be this bad, I actually think it's a good thing for Dak and Ferguson, who looked really good off the MCL, et cetera. But yeah. All right. Let's go to Detroit. Detroit goes to Arizona, and they just run it down the Cardinals' throat. David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs combined for 29 carries, 188 yards, and a touchdown. And so you end out with a game that was, I thought could be a shootout. Evan thought could be a shootout. Jared Goff only threw it 23 times. Amon-Ra gets 8 of those targets. It's just bad for everyone else. So very successful running the football here for the Lions, and that's how the game kind of wore out. Evan, what do you see out of Lions win in Arizona?
Yeah, we've talked about it a few times. David Montgomery was one of the best values in all of fantasy last year. He wound up going in a similar range this year, and he's been an absolute steal. Jahmyr Gibbs, oh my God, he is shot out of a cannon.
Yeah.
So explosive. After that slow week 1, Amon-Ra St. Brown has been crushing. Sam Laporta suffered an ankle injury in this game. He was carted off. Then he came back, and then he left again. It sounds like it's a low ankle sprain, not a high ankle sprain, but we'll see. He might have to miss time. His backup is Brock Wright. The Lions lost Frank Ragnow to a partially torn pectoral. I believe he's done for the season. He's arguably the best center in the league. Those are the big notes that I had on the Lions.
Yeah, the Laporta thing, I mean, it's been such a bad start for Laporta already, and now we add on this ankle sprain. It doesn't sound severe, but you add on an ankle sprain. He did have 2 catches midway through the second quarter when he got hurt. With Laporta out, Brock Wright, 4 catches, 34 yards, no touchdowns in this game. I don't think there's any upside there, but for those who are desperate, Elijah Higgins, Brock Wright types are certainly out there. Let's go to Green Bay. I mean, Malik Willis, man, goes to Tennessee for his revenge game and wins his second straight start. This time, not just as a runner. I mean, he threw the ball really well, did Malik Willis. 202 pass yards, 73 rush yards, 2 total touchdowns. I will say Jordan Love seemed very close to playing in this game. Do expect Jordan Love back for week 4. That is the huge NFC North game against the Vikings. It's hard to have takeaways from week 3, Evan, because the offense will look so different in week 4 when Jordan Love is presumably back. But any thoughts on the Packers coming off yet another Malik Willis win?
Yeah, I did not know that Malik Willis had this in him. He was very efficient in this game. He led them in rushing as well. Matt LaFleur, I mean, I think right now it's between Kevin O'Connell and Matt LaFleur. If the season were to end today for Coach of the Year, I think you give it to Matt LaFleur, considering that his quarterback has been injured, although I guess you could argue the Vikings lost J.J. McCarthy. But what the Vikings have done on defense, like Brian Flores almost kind of deserves it too.
Yeah.
So I think the award, actually right now, I know it's pointless to talk about, but just for fun, Matt LaFleur, I think, would be Coach of the Year through 3 games. Yeah, I mean, Malik Willis had 13 completions, though, and spread the ball around. So nobody had more than 67 yards in the receiving game. That obviously will change when Jordan Love is back. And I agree with you. I think that he will be back this week.
A couple other small notes on Green Bay. Tucker Kraft hurt his shoulder in this game. I don't know how severe it is. We'll see on that, though. Could be a chance for Luke Musgrave to consolidate some there. Also, we'll see when Jordan Love gets back. But in this game, at least, there was a pretty even rotation in terms of routes between Christian Watson and Dontavian Wicks. Last note on this is Emmanuel Wilson got in this game early. I mean, he got in this game midway through the first quarter, got a series to himself early in the second quarter, ends up with 6 touches in the first half while the game was still intact. And Josh Jacobs had 10 touches in the first half. So another one of these backfields where like the more running back touches there are, the more guys like Emmanuel Wilson's going to play. And I know they like Emmanuel Wilson. I mean, Barry talked
He
about
is
it.
one of the best bench stashes in all of
Yeah.
fantasy right now.
I mean, Marshawn Lloyd can't stay healthy. And,
Right.
Marshawn Lloyd is back on IR again now. So not ideal. Let's go to the Rams. No Cooper Kupp. No Puka Nacua in this game. Facing the 49ers. No problem. Matthew Stafford, 16 of 25 for 221 and a touchdown, throwing to total absolute dust balls. The big change that the Rams made in this game that Sean McVay has never done before during his time in the Rams is went to a lot of 2 tight end sets. Colby Parkinson played every single snap, 58 of 58, and Hunter Long was out there for 27. So a lot of 2 tight end for the Rams. Their base wide receivers were Demarcus Robinson and Tutu Atwell. Jordan Whittington, the slot guy, didn't get to play a lot because they had 2 tight ends on the field for most of the game. So really impressive win. I know the 49ers were banged up, but still a really impressive win, I thought, for the Rams. Evan, what do you think of their performance?
Yeah, and the 49ers were cruising early. So this had to be this was a comeback win for the Rams. Yeah, the 49ers were up 14 to nothing in the first half. I was like, oh, here comes another big loss for the Rams, but they rallied back. They stuck with Kyren Williams. Look, they're without like almost all their playmakers. Kyren Williams is their lone remaining playmaker, and they give him 26 touches. He was excellent in both phases. We had kind of guessed that Jordan Whittington would jump into 3 receiver sets. It was actually Tutu Atwell who got that, and they threw him the ball. He had almost 100 yards as a receiver. Yeah, and then a lot of 2 tight end sets, as you mentioned.
Yeah. So there were 28 Matthew Stafford dropbacks. Demarcus Robinson, 27 routes. Tutu, 24. Tyler Johnson, 14. Whittington, 10. I think that's going to kind of be the rotation for a while now. We know Puka is on IR, and Cooper Kupp does not sound close with his ankle injury at all either. Yeah, and just on Kyren, I mean, nothing stops Kyren. Punt return duties, which they took him off of, by the way. Offensive line injuries, the team cratering. Here's 26 more touches, Kyren. Go score 3 touchdowns. No problem. I mean, Kyren's the man. Minnesota. One of the stories of the season is Minnesota. They're 3-0 as Sam Darnold goes nuts again. This time 4 touchdowns, no interceptions against what I think is a talented Texans defense. Sam Darnold is now fantasy's quarterback 2 on the season. He's also second in quarterback rating, and he's doing it without Jordan Addison and without TJ Hawkinson also. Even Sam Darnold Bulls like yourself, Evan, I don't think could have expected what's going on here. What do you think of Darnold and Vikings' latest output?
No, I kind of keep waiting for Sam Darnold, to run out of the magic, and it's not going away. He was excellent. This is one of the better defenses in the league. I mean, people were talking about the Texans as maybe the best defense in the league entering week 3, and Sam Darnold goes out there and carves them up. Had another touchdown overturned in the game. Aaron Jones has been fantastic. He looks like one of the best signings of the offseason. But yeah, Sam Darnold, he's actually been under a surprising amount of pressure, and he has played well under pressure. Kurt Warner was talking about this the other day. He thinks that the mark of elite quarterbacking is ability to perform when pressured. And Sam Darnold has been doing that. He just looks so comfortable, so confident. And as you mentioned, without two of his top three playmakers,
Yeah.
I mean, if you had to set Sam Darnold MVP odds right now, what would you set him at?
Oh, no. God.
Well, it's
I don't
30
even
to
know.
1 on DraftKings, shop around, whatever. But he's 30 to 1 on DraftKings.
You said 30 to 1?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say like 25. So yeah, it's, how bad can it be? I did see early optimism on Jordan Addison for this week. We've heard that before. I hope he takes his time to get right. But yeah, Jordan Addison at least has a chance to be back for a very big game. Vikings-Packers on Sunday. Very big NFC North early season showdown there. Saints. Maybe what the Saints want to do is actually boom it up, because very neutral script in this game against the Eagles. An ugly game, but a neutral game. In other words, it was very close the entire game. And they end up getting off 27 running back carries versus 27 Derek Carr dropbacks. Their PROE, pass rate over expectation, was massively negative. And they called this kind of game plan, even though Chris Olave was feasting. Even though Rashid Shaheed had two big chances that just barely missed, ends up with an air ball. They just kept feeding it up the middle to Alvin Kamara. I did not think that would be the game plan whatsoever. Evan, what did you think of Saints' loss to the Eagles as their offense comes crashing back to earth?
Yeah, that was a surprising game plan, no question. I mean, the Eagles have a lot of beef on the interior. You would think that trying to avoid those guys would be the best plan of attack. The Saints during this game lost their stud center Eric McCoy. I don't know exactly what happened, but the way that Underhill has been tweeting, it doesn't sound great. Chris Olave was not the pull-up play of the week, but he did deliver. He looks great when you just watch him. They just have not had many pass attempts. Again, only 14 completions from Derek Carr in this game on 26 dropbacks. But Chris Olave looks great. 6 for 86 and a touchdown against Philadelphia.
Yeah, for sure. And Olave was like the absolute stone cold easiest buy low heading into last week. Hopefully you guys were able to capitalize on that. Obviously the Jamar Chase one was also, but anyone competent, I think, knew that Jamar Chase was about to play the Commanders and the Panthers. Yeah, New Orleans plays at Falcons, at Chiefs, versus Bucks, their next three games. I was just stunned about the game plan, and it has me a little bit shook on the Clint Kubiak and Saints stuff going forward. More shook than I certainly was last week. Giants. Really impressive win, I thought, for the Giants. They go to Cleveland. They get up 21-7.5, hang on for a 21-16 win. That was the other big survivor spot. A ton of people took Cleveland. Devin Singletary, another strong game, over 100 total yards, including 443, 0 receiving. Also, Devin Singletary purposely went down at the 1 yard line, which was a sharp play to ice the game. And of course, Evan, my God, Malik Neighbors. I mean, obviously we got a lot wrong heading into the season, but Neighbors and Rashee Rice, prioritizing those guys like multiple rounds ahead of ADP was massive, because Malik Neighbors is fantasy's number one wide receiver right now. And the thesis of the play on Neighbors was always, we get the quarterback play is going to be bad. He can earn 30+% of the targets, which no one does. And he's at 35% right now. So really exciting on Malik Neighbors. Evan, impressive win, I would say, for the Giants. What do you think of their game up in Cleveland?
Yeah, and Daniel Jones quietly has played pretty well in back-to-back games. So I'm losing faith in the change to Drew Lock. As long as Daniel Jones keeps playing like this, he's going to keep that job. Just feed Malik Neighbors. Dude is an absolute superstar, already a top 10 receiver in the NFL. He has been targeted on 33% of his routes. So every third route that he runs, they're throwing the ball to Malik Neighbors. The thesis of the play, we knocked that one out of the park.
Home versus Dallas next, which is obviously turned into like a total green light spot these days. So home versus Dallas next for Neighbors, Singletary, and Dimes. Yep, Thursday night game. Eagles. Bad turnovers by Jalen Hurts in this game. He lost a fumble. He threw a bad interception. So even though he went 29 of 38 without A.J. Brown and with Devonta Smith leaving in the second half with a concussion, I actually thought Jalen Hurts was pretty good as a thrower. The key was this Dallas Goedert stuff. And maybe it's just easy to say, no A.J. Brown, They don't have a third receiver they trust. Jahan Dotson stinks. Devontae Smith leaves. Of course, Dallas Goedert is going to go completely nuts. It doesn't always work out that way. So still really impressive game from Dallas Goedert, 10, 170, 0 on 11 targets. Evan, what do you think of Eagles' narrow win down there in New Orleans?
Yeah, it doesn't always work out that way. It also doesn't always work out that way for tight ends against the Saints, who have in Pete Werner and Demario Davis like one of the more athletic linebacker cores in the league. I didn't know that Dallas Goedert had a ceiling that high.
Yeah.
But as you mentioned, Devontae Smith suffered a concussion. AJ Brown was out with that hamstring. It sounds like he might miss another game too.
Yeah. So Eagles have a bye in week 5. I would guess that both Devonta Smith and AJ Brown sit out this game in week 4, use the week 5 bye to get healthy, and then come back firing in week 6. Should also note that Britton Covey, who played a lot of slot receiver for them the last 2 weeks, he left this game with a shoulder injury as well. I mean, they are scraping the bottom of the barrel, are the Eagles, heading into this week 4 game at Tampa. So
you know who was not scraping at the bottom of the barrel? People who drafted Saquon Barkley,
yes,
who on his 65-yard touchdown run was distancing himself from Saints defensive backs.
Yeah.
I mean, that dude's out here like in his, 8th season or 7th season. He looks faster than ever.
I mean, if you were drafting today, Evan, and we're working on the rest of the season top 150 ranks, Saquon's got to be in play for number 1 overall. I mean, he's got to be. No one in the NFL, and it pains me to say that as someone who did not take Saquon Barkley, but I think just being realistic, he's handling 91% of the Eagles running back opportunities so far, 24.3 touches per game. There are just so few guys, so few in the NFL that get that kind of usage these days. Let's go to San Francisco. So before we get to the game, I just want to talk about the Christian McCaffrey thing for a second. Christian McCaffrey is in Germany right now to see a specialist about his calf/Achilles thing. I know not very much, but a little bit about this because I was fascinated by it when Kobe Bryant went and did it like 10 years ago. Basically, I guess in Germany, they have this PRP injections, which are the best in the world. When your tendons and your ligaments aren't healing fast as you'd like or strong enough as you like, you can do this PRP stuff to try to accelerate it. So I would not consider this a bad thing at all. I would actually consider Christian McCaffrey going over to Germany and trying to get alternative treatments a good thing. When Kobe got back from Germany, it looked like nothing happened. He was like rejuvenated, So I don't want to say that this is a bad thing on CMC. I think it's a good thing. I'm not ruling him out for the season, but yeah, he's going to be out a while, clearly, like month, more, etc.
Yep.
Anyways, no CMC, no Debo, no Kittle in this game. Niners go to the Rams, blow the game, really, blow a bunch of leads, lose 27-24. Story of the day was Juwan Jennings. Speaking of guys who I didn't think had it in him, 11, 175, 3 on 12 targets for Juwan Jennings. I mean, just absolutely insane. Brandon Ayuk had a ton of great usage as well, was unable to capitalize on it. Juwan Jennings did capitalize on it. Evan, what do you think of 49ers loss to the Rams?
I mean, if you're watching this game, like every time you look up, the ball's going to number 15. Juwan Jennings was all over the place, making acrobatic catches. He looked incredible. Ayuk, it's like the timing is still clearly off. He had a couple drops in this game. He looks rusty, and the chemistry is just not there right now with Brock Purdy. The 49ers are so banged up right now, man. Brock Purdy experienced back soreness during this game. Obviously, CMC is out indefinitely. Debo, it doesn't sound like he's coming back this week from the calf. Kittle, I mean, hamstring injuries like that are usually not 1-week deals. So we might get another week of Juwan Jennings alpha receiver in week 4.
Yeah, this time it will be in a much different kind of matchup, home against New England. 49ers bye isn't until week 9. I mean, they need their bye ASAP, but it's not coming until week 9. So yeah, we'll have to follow the injury stuff there closely. Seattle. And by the way, Seattle's 3-0. San Francisco's 1-2. This division, San Francisco's going to have to hustle if they're going to win this division. I think the line is like even money now on San Francisco to win that division after they opened up the season as a massive favorite to win that division. So Seattle continues to play well. I mean, Geno Smith and DK Metcalf, more bombs right out of the gate, 71-yard touchdown from Geno to DK Metcalf, and they're off. Geno's just like so much more accurate, I think, than people give him credit for. And he has 4 legit weapons if you count Noah Fant, who got 6 targets here. Evan, what do you think of Seattle and Geno's latest strong performance?
And a much better performance from the Dolphins running game. Zach Charbonnet was not efficient in his week 2 start. He was efficient against Miami. Only 3 touches for Kenny McIntosh, 21 for Zach Charbonnet. I think that we're probably going to get another Zach Charbonnet bell cow game in week 4 with Kenneth Walker. There just have been no indications that he's near coming back from the oblique injury.
Yeah, I saw some reports that, he was getting better and stuff, and he's in play for week 4, but we'll see.
Okay.
Yeah, the Charbonnet usage, incredible. I talked about that a little bit more on the solo pod there for sure. But yeah, 3-0 Seattle Seahawks. Seahawks schedule coming up at the Lions this week, then Giants, then 49ers for the Seahawks. Let's get to the AFC now. We'll start with the Buffalo Bills. Very, very impressive performance last night from the Buffalo Bills. Just domination. I mean, you can make a case the Bills look like the best team in the entire NFL right now. I have some fantasy concerns I want to get to, but it's hard not to think that the Bills are a major, major Super Bowl contender right now. Evan, what do you think of their latest win this time, steamrolling the Jaguars on Monday Night Football?
I love to hear you saying that because I have Bills Super Bowl futures. I would listen to these podcasts during the offseason, and on like every single one of them, I'd hear when they talk about the Bills, the Bills are taking a step back. The Bills are in like a semi-rebuild. I'm like, you were never in a rebuild when you have a quarterback named Josh Allen, okay? I knew that their defense was going to be better. It hurt when Matt Milano was lost for probably the entire season. But Sean McDermott is a really good defensive coach. Their offensive line is better. Their emphasis on the run was really successful under Joe Brady last year. And James Cook he's making us eat it. I was not super high on him entering the season, and he's been fantastic as both a runner and a receiver. Lots of usage in scoring position. The Bills are firing on all cylinders right now.
Yeah, and they're doing it without focusing on any one player in the offense, right? And it's really hard when you have a really flat skill position core. Yeah, James Cook is the feature back. Everything else is incredibly flat right now, and it makes it really hard to know when to play guys in DFS, when to start them. But from a real life perspective, it's obviously working. On Dalton Kincaid specifically, he got the touchdown here, 341-1 on 5 targets. Also had a big play up the right sideline. Usage is still worrisome, right? And I mean, they have reduced his routes over the last 2 games. This is from PFF. On those early drafts, first half drives, Kincaid only 27 out of 46 snaps, only 16 routes on 31 pass plays. Dawson Knox is running a route on 17. So, it's not just that it's really flat in terms of who Josh Allen's looking at when he throws back. It's also Dalton Kincaid's not running as many routes as I think he should be. And my bet was on Kincaid to consolidate. If anyone's going to consolidate here this year, my bet was on Kincaid. I'm growing more skeptical that that's going to happen. Yeah. On Curtis Samuel, only 27 routes through 3 games for Curtis Samuel. He has just 7 touches all season. I know he has this turf toe thing going on, but if he's out there and he's playing, it's just weird to me they're not using him more after giving him $13 million guaranteed. But their 3 wide receiver set of Mac Hollins, wind sprint, Khalil Shakir, power slot, and Keon Coleman, just a good receiver. It's solid, man.
It should be noted that Keon Coleman was benched for the early part of this game because he was late to something.
Yep. They just said general tardiness. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's going to be really hard for us to find any pass catcher in this offense to rely on when they're using like 5 different receivers. I know that there's a primary 3 receiver set, but those other guys taking snaps. So they use like 5 receivers and multiple tight ends.
Yeah, and not just because of last night's result, but I still think Shakir is probably, if I had to bet on one, it would be Shakir.
I would agree with that.
Cincinnati also played last night as expected. When you play the Commanders, you shred in the pass game. Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase absolutely went nuts against this woeful Commanders secondary. But Bengals defense is so bad, they still lose 38-33. But clearly a lot of good things here. I mean, Burrow's wrist seems fine. I actually thought T. Higgins in his first game of the season looked really good. He should have had a touchdown. Burrow like threw it too high to him, and he should have had an easy touchdown. And then T also had a sick one-handed catch deep, but he was just out of bounds on that. So I know it wasn't great for T in the box score, but thought it was a positive night for him. Evan, what do you think of Bengals loss to the Commanders?
And I thought
night?
that this was Yoshi's best game,
Yeah.
too. I mean, all of a sudden, like, they got their guys back. This offense looks like it can be explosive going forward. Zach Moss has been the clear-cut number one running back for the Bengals so far. However, Chase Brown, as expected, has been the much more explosive option.
Yeah.
I just think for now, though, that they are going to stick with Zach Moss in the 1A role and use Chase Brown as the change of pace back. Chase Brown also not playing in passing situations. Another 4 catches for Eric All, who continues to look like a nice little rookie tight end sleeper.
Yeah. Good hold for anyone in Dynasty. Eric All right there. Would agree with Evan on the Chase Brown stuff. Looks explosive, but Zach Moss is preferred around the goal line, and Zach Moss is preferred on pass downs. Doesn't mean Chase Brown won't play there at all, but Moss is preferred there. And yeah, on Yoshi, now he's in the Tyler Boyd role, right? I mean, that is kind of going to be some version of Yoshi's role. He was on Cody's lineup last night, which won $200K in the 3-3-3 2-game
awesome.
slate.
So awesome for Cody.
On DraftKings. Just wanted to give Cody a shout out there. Ton of guys behind the scenes. I know Cody is front facing somewhat, but there is an incredible amount of work being done behind the scenes at ETR. Cody is doing a lot of it, and often thankless job being the best in the world at projecting ownership in UFL and golf and stuff like that. Looking at Instagram pages of players to see if they're playing in their UFL game this week. So happy for Cody. Use Yoshi, get a huge 200K score in the 2-game slate. So congrats, man. Let's go to Cleveland. Latest embarrassment for Deshaun Watson and the Browns is a home loss to the Giants. Deshaun Watson takes 8 sacks. The offensive line continues to fall apart. I think Wyatt Teller, their right guard, he's going to be out a month with an MCL sprain. I mean, it just keeps getting worse for Cleveland. I have some more thoughts about the fantasy perspective, but it's bad right now generally for the Browns. Evan, what do you think of their loss to the Giants?
I want to see Jameis Winston. I'm tired of this. This guy, Watson, is terrible. 8 sacks on 45 dropbacks. They lose at home to the Giants. I understand that the offensive line has been decimated by injury. Jack Conklin, I don't even think he's played this season. Their swing tackle, James Hudson, he got hurt in this game. David Njoku is out. Probably going to miss another week with the high ankle sprain. Jedrick Wills got hurt again in week 3. They had Joel Bitonio playing tackle. And that's like really the strength of the offensive line is supposed to be Joel Bitonio and Wyatt Teller. They're stud guards. All of a sudden, they don't have either of them because Wyatt Teller's hurt and Joel Bitonio is playing tackle.
Yeah.
So they're all discombobulated. I mean, there are some excuses for Deshaun Watson, but the way that he has played independently, I mean, I don't think he's a starting caliber quarterback anymore.
The crazy part to me is that they are running one of the most pass-centric schemes in the entire NFL. As the rest of the league has gone to a lot more run-based stuff, the Browns, and maybe it's because Nick Chubb is out and they think Jerome Ford is like, a feature back that should be in spread or whatever, but they are going extremely pass-heavy, and it leads to like these games where Deshaun Watson can play awful, but he has 18 DraftKings points, because he's dropping back 40 times. He gets 25 yards rushing, and you look down, and next thing you know, he's one of the leading scorers at quarterback on the week. That does not say that he's a good real-life quarterback, because he is absolutely awful right now. On any real-life metric, he's one of the worst in the league. Hopefully, we'll see Jameis Winston soon. Other notes I had on this game, Amari Cooper was like all over the Baglioni model. He hit 786, 2 on 12 targets. Amari Cooper has seen some of the best opportunity in the league. It's just what Amari Cooper does. He underperforms his opportunity, and then he kind of hits it all at once. It's just hard for me to feel good about starting any of these guys other than Amari, given Deshaun Watson's situation. That said, Vegas, Washington, Philly, next 3 weeks for Cleveland. Certainly good spots, and we'll see on David Njoku's status as well. He's currently week to week with that ankle sprain. Broncos. I didn't see this one coming on the Broncos. I mean, they go to Tampa, and they just jump all over the Bucs right out of the gate. It was 17-0 Broncos before the Bucs could even blink. Still, even with that, not a great fantasy day for anyone on the Broncos whatsoever. They're using so many running backs. They're using so many tight ends. They're rotating wide receivers, but has to be encouraging for Bo Nix and Sean Payton here. Evan, what do you think of their win in Tampa?
Yeah, they started using Tyler Beatty on the
Yeah.
ground. He wound up leading them in rushing. He had a long run in the game. He finished with 9 for 70. Bo Nix he's had like 3 straight productive games as a runner. That was one thing that you identified about him earlier in the season. He's probably even outdone your expectations
Oh, big time. Yeah.
as a runner. He's been super productive. That's like a big part of their offense.
He's on pace to run for like 700 yards. It's insane.
Yeah. I think it might be Jover for Javonte Williams. He got a one shot at the goal line, got stuffed, and then Jaleel McLaughlin ran it in on the next play. Yeah, we're still really, nice win for the Broncos, whatever. We're not really getting any quality fantasy production from anybody. What would you be bidding on Tyler Beatty this week?
Yeah, we talked about that with Daigle. He had it around like 5% of your remaining budget. I'd probably have it a little bit higher just because the chance to get a starting running back does not grow on trees off of waivers, but I think it'll be hot hand, use all 3 backs pretty much all season. So I'm not like overly excited about that one whatsoever. And yeah, I mean, they continue to use Lil Jordan Humphrey, Reynolds, Franklin, Sutton. I mean,
And facing the Jets next week. So
yeah, it's just not great. Texans. Texans lose their first game of the season. They were never really in it at all against the Vikings. I mean, Brian Flores, man. Texans scored 0 points in the first half. They scored 7 points for the whole game against this Brian Flores defense. Stroud was just uncomfortable, took 4 sacks, threw 2 picks. As we kind of talked about Sunday morning, Steph Diggs was the safety valve, right? Against these aggressive defenses, you get Steph Diggs as the safety valve for CJ Stroud. He catches 10 passes on 12 targets this season. But yeah, I mean, this is about as bad as it can look for Texans pass game. Evan, what do you think of their performance against the Vikings?
yeah, I think it's just hats off to Brian Flores, who has been on a freaking heater to this point in the season. And the Vikings did this without Dallas Turner, who they traded up to draft at number 17 overall, and Ivan Pace, their best linebacker. So I'm not like worried about the Texans. I think it's just hats off to the Vikings defense. Dominant performance. Cam Akers basically got scripted out early. I mean, the Vikings went up 14-0 in the first quarter. Cam Akers did wind up catching a receiving touchdown to salvage a little bit. But this was not – I guess people are still pissed at Tank Dell. He had 5 for 62 and on 6 targets in a game where the Texans were resting starters by the fourth quarter.
Yeah, routes this season, Nico Collins 112, Steph Diggs 110, Tank Dell 105. I mean, he is out there just as much as these other guys. You saw it start to come together for him a little bit against the Vikings here. Yeah, I mean, Cam Akers kind of got scripted out a bit, did salvage his day with a garbage time receiving touchdown. I'm not sure on Joe Mixon's status for their next game here against the Jaguars. We'll keep an eye on that. Colts controlled this game pretty much the whole way, just harassing this horrific Bears offensive line. Caleb, 2 picks, takes 4 sacks, lost a fumble. Despite this win, though, major concerns on Anthony Richardson as a thrower continue. Just 10 completions on 20 pass attempts here, 2 more interceptions. The Pittman stuff is, I mean, I got people asking me, should I drop Michael Pittman? I mean, and I get it at this point. I'm not dropping him, but I get it. It's scary. Anyways, still a good win for them. What do you think of Colts game here against the Bears?
Yeah, I think that this was probably the most eye-opening and probably the worst passing performance of Anthony Richardson's career, just sailing everything high, throwing picks. I think that there are valid concerns about his passing ability. I think that if you had any worries about Jonathan Taylor, those were alleviated. They kind of need a lead, for him
Right.
to really take off. Their offensive line, by the way, PFF has their offensive line as like the best in the league so far. Those are the notes that I had on the Colts.
Yeah, I mean, similar to Derrick Henry, Jonathan Taylor needs to score touchdowns, needs to have leads. I mean, that's just going to be it on Jonathan Taylor. But when they do, you can see what can happen. Josh Downs did make it back for this game and immediately sent A.D. Mitchell to the bench. A.D. Mitchell only 2 routes in this game on 22 dropbacks. Josh Downs ran 16 routes as the primary slot receiver. Let's go to Jacksonville. I mean, this was bad. I mean, really bad. They got trucked in all phases by the Bills on Monday night. One of the worst beatdowns that you'll see in the NFL. It was so bad that after the game, Doug Peterson said, everything is on the table in terms of changes. Someone said, oh, does that include Trevor Lawrence? And Dougie P was kind of non-committal. Now, obviously, I don't think they're going to bench Trevor Lawrence, but this was a big-time yikes game for the Jaguars as a whole. Is this salvageable, Evan? What do you think of Jaguars last night?
You don't think that Mac Jones could save the Jaguars? I just, there's really no room for optimism at this point. I just, again, I go back to like the kind of the word on Frank Reich, why he flamed out was because the game kind of passed him by. That's the same sort of era where Doug Peterson was having all of his success in Philadelphia. I just wonder if the same thing is happening in Jacksonville right now. I don't know that they have it. I don't. This has not been promising, even dating back to last season.
Yeah, no, I mean, Dougie P is in big trouble, and I think he knows it, and that's why he's saying that all cards are on the table. Yeah. I mean, they're going to start doing some desperate things to try to right the ship because Doug Peterson is going to be gone if they don't figure it out. The report was the owner, what's his name, Shad Khan, was like normally a really nice reserved guy, and he was supposedly like livid, which I understand. If I owned a $1 billion company that went out and performed like that, I'd be pissed also. So yeah. All right. Oh, should know Gabe Davis went down with a shoulder injury later in that game. Not sure on severity. Parker Washington is the next man up there. And also Evan Ingram didn't seem close. Brenton Strange, shout out Penn State, caught a touchdown. Usage remained strong for Brenton Strange. Chiefs get a narrow win in Atlanta, benefit from that no call on the Kyle Pitts pass interference. In the first game without Pacheco, it was that rough 70-30, 65-35 split we talked about between Steele and Pirine. I thought Steele handled himself really well in this game. Did not translate to fantasy points, but still handled himself really well. Evan, what do you think of Chiefs win over the Falcons?
Yeah, I think that at times watching Carson Steele kind of reminds me of like a poor man's Peyton Hillis. Remember he was on the Madden cover once upon a time.
I thought you were going to say Mike. I thought you were going to say Mike Allstott.
Oh my God! You ever go back and watch Mike Allstott highlights?
Pancakes.
What?
Pancakes. Just Mike Allstott just pancaking people as a blocker. I don't watch him that much as a runner, but yeah.
No. He was unbelievable as a runner. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think Carson Steele is that good. I think that Rashee Rice is up there in that CeeDee Lamb tier as one of the best power slot receivers in the NFL. He's proved that week in and week out to begin the season. His ADOT is way up as well. So he's seeing more downfield chances. He's just going to absolutely cook the rest of the way. Xavier Worthy, they're still not getting him the ball enough in the passing game.
Yeah. So my concern on Xavier Worthy is that, well, let's go back to last year. Last year, Rashee Rice to start at this time was not playing enough, but when he was out there, he was earning targets at a really high rate. It is the opposite with Xavier Worthy. Xavier Worthy has run 72% of the routes this season, but he's only earned a 12% target share. I mean, that's really bad considering Kelsey is toast, and he's competing with Juju and Justin Watson behind Rashee Rice. So yeah, little worried on Xavier Worthy right now for sure.
Did you see that Taylor Swift did not go to the game?
I didn't.
Could be on the rocks.
Uh-oh. It's time for you to swoop in. Chargers. So Chargers played Raiders and Panthers the first 2 weeks. When you play the Raiders and Panthers, it's real easy to say, oh, look, J.K. Dobbins is the best back in the league, and Quentin Johnston's an alpha again, and Harbaugh and Roman are geniuses. In week 3, they go to Pittsburgh. They generate 10 first downs the entire game. They run just 45 plays. Now, I understand Justin Herbert came into this game with an injury, aggravated it, and left. But still, obviously matchups mean a ton. Evan, what do you think of Chargers' loss in Pittsburgh?
My big takeaway, well, obviously Herbert. He looks like he aggravated his high ankle sprain.
Yeah.
The Chargers lost both of their tackles in this game, and we had been talking about how awesome Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt had looked. Rashawn Slater suffered a pectoral strain. That's not good. And then Joe Alt sprained MCL.
Yeah.
That's what this offense is built around. So that's a really, really big concern. We saw last year, like the Seahawks lost both of their tackles early in the season, and like just their offense sort of never fully recovered from that.
Yeah.
So that's worrisome.
I mean, every year it seems like the Chargers get bit by the injury bug as bad or worse than anyone else. It's like wild. I can't. It's happened so much. I feel like it can't be a coincidence, but it's crazy. I mean, losing Alt is bad.
J.K. Dobbins did have his highest snap percentage of the season.
Yes.
But he had 18 touches, which is also a season high.
Yes.
Just didn't really do anything with them. The Steelers, I think, have the best defense in the league at this point.
Yes. So I wanted to make that point. Thank you for bringing that up. So yesterday or Sunday, the Chargers only had 45 plays and 21 running back opportunities. So either, and opportunities were 18 for Dobbins, 3 for Gus Edwards. So either the coaches said, hey, we don't have that many plays going. You know, J.K. Dobbins, like the same thing I talked about with Breece Hall and Braylon Allen. It's going to be a higher percentage when there's less running back opportunities available. Or they decided that we've looked at the tape, we've looked at the data, and Gus Edwards is just total dust right now. He just sucks. And if that's the case, to me, Kimani Vidal has to be one of the best stashes in fantasy. They could give up on Gus Edwards at any time, and J.K. Dobbins remains one of the biggest injury risks in the league. So, yeah, still want to have Vidal stashed where I can. Raiders come off the Ravens win in week 2. Everyone's feeling good. They're big home favorites against the Panthers. And then you just get absolutely shredded. I mean, lit up by Andy Dalton and the Panthers. Defense was absolutely non-existent. It got so bad in this game that Gardner Minshew got benched for AOC. Bowers didn't even play that much, only saw 4 targets. Just, I mean, a huge step in the wrong direction for the Raiders. Evan, what do you think of their game against the Panthers?
It just makes me feel really bad about losing my survivor pick, the Ravens, in week 2 to this team.
Yeah.
The running game remains non-existent for the Raiders. They have like the worst running game in the league. Aiden O'Connell came in and did some good things. They're talking about maybe going to him.
Yeah.
Going forward, we'll find out maybe later today. We're recording this on Tuesday early afternoon or tomorrow. Brock Bowers only got 4 targets, but my goodness, he looked awesome with the ball in his hands again. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got.
Yeah, so the Bowers in week 1, his route rate was 78%, then 65%, and then just 60% in week 3. Not worried about it. You know, I mean, it's not ideal, but I think they know they need to get Brock Bowers out there a ton and a ton more. And yeah, he's going to be just fine. If somebody's selling Brock Bowers based on that, I'd be buying. Trey Tucker showed up here for 796-1. I still think Trey Tucker can play. I doubt I can ever start him in season long, but right. Trey Tucker's on my radar if there was an injury to Devontae Adams or Jacoby Myers.
Little slot receiver with speed.
Let's go to the Dolphins. So Skylar Thompson starts this game predictably, can't do anything at all. 19 pass attempts for 107 yards, takes 5 sacks. He gets hurt. He's day-to-day. They go to Tim Boyle. I mean, we got to do something at quarterback if we're the Dolphins. We can't just go like this. And I know they're exploring other options right now. I don't know what that means. Does it mean Tannehill? Does it mean starting Snoop Huntley? I don't know what it means. But until they get their quarterback situation solved, it's going to be really hard to feel good about any Dolphins. Evan, what did you think of Skylar Thompson and the latest Dolphins performance?
Yeah, I don't get why are they not looking at Tannehill?
Yeah.
Is it Tannehill doesn't want to go back there? Is it the owner, Stephen Ross, has some sort of an ego issue? They can't. Skylar Thompson looked completely lost in this game. Winds up, I think he has broken ribs. I think it's going to be Tyler Huntley.
Yeah.
This week.
Tyler Huntley has had some big games in the NFL. Not, he's looked bad a lot, but he has found the ceiling once or twice. I believe Will Sue, one of my favorite ETR subs, won $1 million with a Tyler Huntley start a few years ago. Versus Titans, at Pats, at Colts next 3 games. But yeah, I mean, Tyreek and Waddle combined for 7 catches, 66 yards, no touchdowns. Achan's efficiency was bad. It's just can't have this kind of quarterback play. Patriots looked totally dead in that Thursday night game. I mean, totally dead. It was a short week. I get it. They were playing the Jets, just absolutely corpses out there, not good on offense. They had no chance against a very good Jets defense. And then also their defense struggled, which surprised me. I mean, they could not stop Aaron Rodgers whatsoever. Evan, what do you think of Patriots game last Thursday against the Jets?
I think that they were due for an offensive collapse because and I put this in the matchups column heading into the Jets Patriots game. They've been allowing pressure almost half of Jacoby Brissett's dropbacks. And then all of a sudden, can I hit the fan? And they give up 7 sacks in this game. Jacoby Brissett was sacked on 18 of 23. I'm sorry, on 5 of 23 dropbacks and threw for 98 yards on 18 attempts. You're not going to get anything from any offensive players when your offense just can't function. And that was the deal against the Jets.
Yeah, the only thing I'd say, they said they were going to get Pop Douglas going, and they did get Pop Douglas going to some degree. When you play the Jets, your slot receiver should be favored. Their Jets outside corners are so good. Steelers. Justin Fields is 3-0. I mean, you can't say anything else. Justin Fields is 3-0. At Falcons, he won. At Broncos, he won. Versus Chargers, he won. And honestly, this game against the Chargers, I thought he was actually really calm as a thrower for the first time that I've seen him. 25 out of 32 throwing, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, only took 2 sacks. I mean, that's big time for Justin Fields as a thrower. It's hard to see Russell Wilson getting back in here anytime soon. Evan, what do you think of Steelers' latest win?
It's just annoying that I got to constantly hear about how the Bears should have just kept Justin Fields. Honestly, I think the best argument would have been the Bears keeping Justin Fields and then having him be the starter and then easing it off to Caleb instead of just giving up Justin Fields for a 4th-round pick. That would have been the best situation. They didn't want any part of that. They didn't want that in their locker room, which I also understand.
Yeah.
Justin Fields is just such an awesome fit, I think, for the way that Arthur Smith wants to play. And that's to run the ball with extreme volume. As long as he's not giving the ball to the other team, which he hasn't been doing, he can be super efficient and be a part of the running game, and at a level of dynamic ability that Najee Harris doesn't have. Jaylen Warren is hurt again. He went for an MRI on his knee. I don't know. Do you know anything about his status?
Yeah, they just said in doubt for week 4.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, and can throw the ball vertically. You saw that to Calvin Austin on the long touchdown. So Justin Fields is an awesome fit for this offense. I think way better fit than Russell Wilson, who does not really have mobility like that anymore at this stage of his career.
Yeah. The only thing about Justin Fields for fantasy is he's not running like he did with the same efficiency. He's getting plenty of volume running. He's not running with the same efficiency that he got with the Bears. Dink has speculated that when he was in shotgun so much in Chicago, he has the whole field in front of him, and it's easier for him to run around and make crazy plays. Just a totally different offense. In this offense, he's running play action. He's under center. Everybody's condensed around the line of scrimmage, and so he hasn't been efficient running, but we know that it's at least in there.
I think it's just a matter of time before he breaks 1 or 3 in the same game,
For sure. Cordell Patterson, we talked about on the waiver wire show. Najee Harris sounds like he's going to be okay, but he hurt his shoulder in this game, is expected to play week 4. And then Jaylen Warren just had the hamstring injury, now has the knee injury, looking like a disaster of a season for Jaylen Warren already. And so CPAT is at least worth considering if you need running back help. Last one today is the Tennessee Titans. Another really ugly performance from the Titans, this time in the Malik Willis Bowl. Titans were never really in it. They lose 30-14 to the Packers. At what point do they pull the plug on Will Levis? I mean, he's only played 11 full NFL games. I get it. But in those 11 games, taken 42 sacks, thrown 9 interceptions, fumbled 9 times, have just 3 wins. It's kind of hard for me to see it at this point on Will Levis. Evan, what do you think of Titans' latest loss?
Yeah, I continue to think that Will Levis just is not it. And for as long as he's in there, we are looking at playing defenses against the Titans offense in fantasy football. He took 8 sacks in this game? Yeah, 8. Oh my God. 8 sacks, just 8 turnovers through 3 games. Mason Rudolph, man. I mean, Mason Rudolph.
Unbelievable. The one thing I would note is that DeAndre Hopkins, who's been dealing with his knee injury, only ran 22 routes on 44 Levis dropbacks, but 6 catches, 73 yards, and a touchdown. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins still can play. It's just this knee thing combined with Will Levis has turned it into a really tough start, but the dude can still play, I think.
One thing about Will Levis, like he was not like anointed the Titans franchise quarterback or anything.
No,
This is not a situation where they have to stick with him. He's inherited by Brian Callahan. He's pissing Brian Callahan off.
Yeah.
I don't know how long Brian Callahan is going to stand for this.
Right. And yeah, he was a second round pick, Will Levis, right? I mean, he wasn't even a first round pick if I recall correctly. So yeah, certainly no need to string it out longer than you want to with Will Levis. All right. That is going to do it for this edition of the Team by Team podcast. Appreciate you all being here. Helps us a ton if you head to YouTube and hit the subscribe button. Also think you'll enjoy listening to this show more if you are indeed watching it. You get to see our faces, but more importantly, you get to see all the beautiful highlights and stats from producer Ryan and the rest of the YouTube team. For Evan, producer Luke, producer Ryan, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.